Imagine sitting in a dark movie theater, the screen glowing, the air thick with the scent of butter and salt. The first crunch echoes softly in your mouth, and suddenly you're reminded of one simple, universal truth. Popcorn isn't just a snack, it's an experience. But have you ever wondered why popcorn pops at all? Why does this humble kernel explode into a fluffy white cloud, while other grains just sit there and burn? What makes popcorn, of all things, the most dramatic food in history? The answer lies hidden inside an ancient grain with an explosive secreta story that began thousands of years ago, long before movie nights or microwave bags. Long before the hum of projectors or the glow of smartphones, there were fires in the dark. Ancient people gathered around them, tossing seeds into the flames, curious, hungry, experimenting. And somewhere, around 5,600 years ago, deep in the valleys of Mexico, someone must have leaned in, heard that first pop, and stared in astonishment as a tiny grain burst open into something entirely new. Archaeologists have found evidence of popcorn in ancient Peruvian tombs and in cave dwellings where early civilizations used it not just for food, but for decoration and ceremony. Popcorn was sacred, powerful, mysterious. It wasn't just eaten, it was worshipped. The earliest popcorn came from a particular kind of maize called Zea maize evita. Unlike other types of corn, each kernel of popcorn has a unique structure. A hard outer shell, known as the pericarp, and a small amount of moisture locked inside. That little bit of trapped water is the secret to the pop. When the kernel is heated, the moisture turns into steam, building pressure until boom. The pericarp ruptures, and the starchy interior expands at lightning speed. The fluffy white foam that bursts out is starch turned inside out. It hardens in a split second, capturing that crisp, airy texture we love. It is an accident of evolution that this particular type of corn became the world's favorite movie snack. But back in ancient America, popcorn had far greater meaning. The Aztecs, for example, saw the popping of corn as a spiritual act. They believed that the heat made the spirits inside the kernels angry, causing them to burst in protest. During festivals honoring Tlaloc, the god of rain, or Ziptotec, the god of renewal, popcorn garlands were draped around idols, woven into headdresses, and even used in offerings. Each pop was like a small prayer, transformation from seed to spirit. As centuries passed, popcorn spread across the Americas. Native tribes from the Great Plains to the Mississippi Valley carried it in woven bags, roasted it over coals, and even mixed it with maple syrup or animal fat. It wasn't just a snack, it was survival. Lightweight, long-lasting, and energizing. Popcorn was one of the earliest forms of portable food. When European explorers like Christopher Columbus arrived in the New World, they encountered indigenous people offering them popcorn as a gesture of hospitality. And soon enough, the Europeans were hooked. By the 19th century, popcorn had become a frontier staple in the United States. Families would heat sand in iron pots and toss the kernels in, watching them explode. The sound was entertainment enough. Street vendors began popping corn over open fires, selling it in paper cones at fairs and circuses. And then came one man who changed everything, Charles Crete. In 1885, he patented the first commercial steam-powered popcorn machine. His invention allowed vendors to pop corn evenly and in bulk right there on the street, drawing crowds with that irresistible aroma. Suddenly, popcorn wasn't just a snack, it was a spectacle. The timing couldn't have been better. The early 1900s saw the birth of the movie theater, and popcorn found its perfect partner. The smell of fresh popcorn became synonymous with cinematic excitement. During the Great Depression, when luxuries were scarce, popcorn remained cheaper. Could buy you a bag and a few moments of joy. Movie theaters initially resisted selling it, fearing it would make a mess, but eventually realized it could save their businesses. In the 1930s, theaters that sold popcorn made profits soar while others went bankrupt. Popcorn became the hero of entertainment economics. But the story of popcorn didn't stop at the silver screen. During World War II, sugar rationing hit candy production hard, and Americans turned to popcorn as their go-to treat. By 1945, consumption had tripled. After the war, as television began replacing the cinema as the center of home entertainment, popcorn followed. Housewives started making it on stovetops, and the comforting sound of kernels exploding in a pan became part of family life. Then came the invention that would make popcorn truly unstoppable: the microwave. In 1981, engineer Percy Spencer's earlier accidental discovery of microwave heating found a delicious application. Pillsbury and General Mills began experimenting with pre-packaged microwave popcorn bags lined with special heat-resistant coatings and butter flavoring. Suddenly, the magic of the movie theater could be recreated at home in under 3 minutes. It was the rebirth of popcorn in the modern era, blend of chemistry, convenience, and nostalgia. But here's the thing most people don't realize. The science behind that perfect pop is as delicate as it is dramatic. If a kernel contains too little moisture, it won't pop. If it contains too much, it bursts prematurely and becomes chewy. The ideal moisture level: about 14%. That's why popcorn manufacturers carefully monitor humidity and store kernels in precise conditions. Every pop is a tiny, controlled explosion on art form disguised as a snack. And yet, despite all our modern technology, we're still captivated by the same spectacle that amazed ancient people thousands of years ago. That small explosion carries with it echoes of firelight, ritual, and discovery. There's something primal about it. Something that bridges the gap between science and emotion. When you watch those kernels dance and explode in your microwave window, you're witnessing a ritual older than writing itself. What's more fascinating is how popcorn evolved as a symbol of shared experience. In the early 20th century, it became the soundtrack of social life crunching. During laughter, during fear, during love scenes, popcorn wasn't just food, it was community. Every pop became part of the atmosphere, part of the story, and that communal connection remains even today. Whether you're at a cinema, a fair, or just curled up at home, popcorn transforms simple moments into memories. But beyond nostalgia lies a world of scientific intrigue. Researchers at the University of Paris studied popcorn under high-speed cameras to understand exactly what happens during the pop. They discovered that when pressure builds up inside, the hole cracks at a precise temperature about 180 degrees Celsius, 356. The escaping steam expands the starch instantly, forming that familiar fluffy shape. And here is the weird part. They also discovered that every kernel makes a tiny jump as it bursts like a miniature gymnast performing a somersault. Popcorn literally leaps for joy when it pops. Popcorn's modern story continues to evolve. Today, we see it in gourmet flavors: truffle, caramel, cheddar, and even in experimental molecular gastronomy dishes. It's part of diets, festivals, and pop culture. From ballparks to Netflix nights, popcorn remains the world's favorite edible sound effect. And yet, every bite is a reminder of its ancient roots, of the humans who first discovered joy in a small explosion. So the next time you hear that familiar pop, think about it not just as a sound, but as a story that began in firelight and continues under fluorescent bulbs. A story of curiosity, culture, and chemistry colliding in perfect harmony. Each kernel is a tiny time capsule containing not just moisture, but millennia of human history. It's a snack that survived empires, revolutions, and technological revolutions, and somehow still manages to surprise us. Because popcorn isn't just about what happens when heat meets granite. It's about what happens when wonder meets ordinary life. It has proof that even the simplest things we take for granted hide worlds of complexity and beauty. From ancient ritual to modern indulgence, from Aztec priests to teenage moviegoers, popcorn has been exploding its way through human history one kernel at a time. And maybe that's why it's so satisfying. Maybe that's why we can't help but smile when we hear it. It's not just the crunch, not just the flavor, it's the sound of continuity, the sound of the past meeting the present in the most delightful way imaginable. Popcorn pops! Because it must, because pressure always seeks release, because transformation always demands a spark. And in that spark, we find something beautifully human. The joy of creation, the thrill of discovery, and the eternal fascination with what happens next.